Recording in progress.
All right.
All right. Started. Where'd all the devotees go? They just ran away. It's Sunday. They're all on vacation. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihate Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihate Gopi Janaballabha Girivarunante Janamana Girivarunante Yatsuranandana Prajajanurandana Sudanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachate Yamuna Tira Manachate Jayarad Madhova Kunya Vihare Jayarad Madhava Kunya Vihare Gopi Janaballabha Girivaradhare Gopi Janaballabha Girivaradhare Devarana Sudanandana Rajajanarandana Sudanandana Rajajanarandana Gunatera Vanachare Yamunatera Vanachare Jaya Madhova Kunya Vihate Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vikhante Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Paravatikacharya also Teda such as Shrimad, His Divine Grace Abhaya Chalanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Vilas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Mathuram Ki Jai Jagannath Swami Ki Jai Yamunamai Ki Jai Shrimati Lassi Devi Ki Jai Sama Veda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Samaniti Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pacharni Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarani. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 9th chapter, text 2. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Tada Te Bratara Sarve Sadasvai Swarna Ushitai Anvakachan Retire Vipra Vyasa Domyadayas Tata Tadate Vratura Sarve Sadashvai Svarna Bhushitai Anvagachan Retire Vipra Vyasa Domyadayastada Tadate Vratarak Sarve Sadashvai Svarna Bhushitai Anvagachan Retire Vipra Vyasa Domyadayastata Tadate Vratarak Sarve Sadashvai Svarna Bhushitai Anvakachan Retire Vipra Vyasadomya Dayastata. Okay.
Vyasadamya dayastata.
Tadate bratarat sarve.
Tadate bratara sarve.
Sadashvai svarna bhushitai.
Sadashvai svarna bhushitai.
Anvaga chandratai vipara.
Anvaga chandratai vipara.
Vyasadamya dayastata.
Vyasadamya dayastata.
Tadate bratarha sarve,
Tadate bratara sarve.
Sadaishva svarna bhushitai,
Sadashvai svarna bhushitai.
Anga chandratai vipra,
Anvaga chandratai vipra.
Vyasadamya dayastata,
Vyasadamya dayastata.
All right. Ta-da! At that time. Te, all of them. Bratarak, the brothers. Sarve, all together. Sat Ashvai, drawn by first-class horses. Swarna, gold. Bhushitai, being decorated with. Anbakachan, followed one after another. Ratai, on the chariots. Vipra, the Brahmanas. Vyasa, the sage Vyasa. Domya, Adya, and others. Chata, also. Translation: at that time, all his brothers followed him on beautiful chariots, drawn by first-class horses decorated with gold ornaments. With them were Vyasa and rishis like Domya, the learned priest of the Pandavas, and others. And so there is no purport to this text, and the next few texts are actually pretty much just explaining what went on, and so we may go through a few texts here. So text 3 in this chapter, Bhagavan api viprashe ratena sadananjaya sathirvya rochata nripa kuvera iva guyakai. O sage amongst the Brahmanas, Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, also followed seated on a chariot with Arjuna. Thus King Yudhisthira appeared very aristocratic, like Kuvera, surrounded by his companions, the Guyakas. So here we have a purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Lord Sri Krishna wanted the Pandavas to be present before Bhishma Deva in the most aristocratic order, so that he might be pleased to see them happy at the time of his death. Kuvera is the richest of all the demigods, and herein King Yudhisthira appeared like him, Kuvera, for the procession along with Sri Krishna was quite appropriate to the royalty of King Yudhisthira. So we will go on to the next text. Drishvani patitam bhumau divaschutam ivamaram panemu pandava bhishmam sanugat sahachaktrina. Seeing him, Bhishma, lying on the ground like a demigod, fallen from the sky, the Pandava king Yudhisthira, along with his younger brothers and Lord Krishna, bowed down before them. Purport. Lord Krishna was also a younger cousin of Maharaj Yudhisthira, as well as the intimate friend of Arjuna. But all the family members of the Pandavas knew Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord, although conscious of his supreme position, always behaved in a humanly custom, and so he also bowed down before the dying Bhishmadeva as if he were one of the younger brothers of King Yudhisthira. Anyway, we'll continue. Tatra brahmashya sarve devashayas jasattama rajarshayascha tatra san drashtum bharata pungavam. Just to see the chief of the descendants of King Bharata, Bhishma, all the great souls in the universe, namely the rishis amongst the demigods, brahmanas, and kings, all situated in the quality of goodness, were assembled there. So, purport again. The rishis are those who have attained perfection by spiritual achievements. Such spiritual achievements can be earned by all, whether one is a king or a mendicant. Bhishmadeva himself was also one of the Brahma rishis, and the chief of the descendants of King Bharata. All the rishis are situated in the quality of goodness. All of them assembled there on hearing the news of the great warrior's impending death. So maybe we'll pause here for a second. So, Om Gana Timiranda Shah, Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshur Unmeritam Yena Tasmai, Shri Gurave Namaha. So there are several interesting points so far that we've touched upon, or Prabhupada and the Bhagavatam touched upon. One is that Krishna acts according to etiquette. Now, in the Western world, we don't really follow these items of etiquette, isn't it? This is actually part of a civilized society where the son or the daughter offers obeisances to the parents, or the younger brother offers obeisances to the elder brother and listens to the elder brother, isn't it? You don't have that here. We don't have it in America for sure. You know, we call the parents by their first name. You know, if we don't say mother or Mataji, we say, hey. Hey, actually, it's interesting. In English, we don't have the distinction that we would use a different, let's say, word for you, for familiar or for formal, like you do. Probably in Slovenia you do, right? You have a formal you and a familiar you. And in Spanish also, we have a tú, which is familiar, and usted, which is how you would address your parents. You wouldn't say to your parents, hey, you, too. That would be a big insult. So anyway, so there's this etiquette, and we find in the Lord's pastimes that the Lord is displaying this etiquette for a variety of reasons. One is that he enjoys this sort of exchange, the exchange of ras, of worshiping who ostensibly or appears to be his superior. Another one, of course, is yad yada charati shreshtas. What is that? Tatari veitaro janaha, setting an example for others. And we see this to an extreme extent in Lord Ram's pastimes. In Lord Ram's pastimes, it's interesting. You have Lord Ram's brother, of course he had 3 brothers, Bharat, Shatrughna, and Lakshman, who really were completely subservient to Lord Ram. Amazing. And of course, Lakshman is the quintessential example of that. Quintessential means topmost example of that. So much so that he was considered to be like the shadow of Lord Ram. So even when they went into the forest, in order to protect Sita and Ram when they were banished, or when Ram was banished and Sita and Lakshman followed him, he didn't sleep for 14 years. Amazing, isn't it? How many of you can sleep, not sleep, for 14 hours? Not possible. How many of you cannot sleep during Bhagavatam class? Not possible. Right? I know, joking. I mean, there's an interesting story. One time, Prabhupada came to a temple, and because the devotees had been up the last few nights preparing for Prabhupada, they were all more tired than devotees normally are. And they were sleeping during Bhagavatam class. You know, Prabhupada was giving the class, and every devotee was... And Prabhupada looked around. It's interesting what he said. He said, this movement is going on only by Krishna's mercy. Because obviously, you know, if everybody's sleeping, it takes special mercy from Krishna for the movement to go on. So Lakshman didn't sleep for 14 years. He didn't eat for 14 years. He just listened to whatever Ram told him to do for 14 years. How many of us have brothers, younger brothers, who are so obedient? Like I joined the Hare Krishna movement. And I said to my brother, you know, he came to check to make sure I was still alive and to pick up my smashed car. Anyway, that's another story. And I said, come into the temple, at least take prasadam. He said, no, he wouldn't even listen to that, as far as that was concerned. So Lakshman, 14 years, elder brother, serving. And then when Ram told him to do things that he objected to, I mean, this is extreme. Like putting Sita Devi into the fire, he did it. Would you do that? If I told you to put your wife into the fire? No. That's good, because one should not follow the guru blindly. Prabhupada said blind following and absurd inquiries are condemned. So anyway, and then when Ram told him to take Sita Devi into the forest, after the washerman complained about Ram taking Sita Devi back after she'd been in Ravan's kingdom for 1 year, Lakshman did it. And then in the end of the Ramayana, I mean, it's really heartbreaking, Ram banishes Lakshman. Do you all know that story? Or should I tell it? No, you don't know the story. I'll tell that story. It's really heavy. Once upon a time, it came time to end Ram's pastimes, and for Ram, Lord Ram, I keep saying Ram, it should be Lord Ram. I have to be more formal with Ram and less formal with Krishna. So I can say Lord Ram, and I can say Krishna. It's interesting. So once upon a time, it came time for Lord Ram to leave this world and go back to the spiritual world, or anyway, with his devotees. And so there was the messenger sent by Yamaraj, who was Mr. Kala. Kala means what? Time. He went to Ram, and he said, I have to speak to you. And Ram said, okay. And Kala said, it has to be private. No one can intrude. And Ram called for Lakshman and said, you guard the door. And if anyone comes in or disturbs me, he had to assure Kala that I will banish him from the kingdom. I will reject him. And so what happened was very interesting. This great sage came. His name was Durvasa, which basically means the sage with a bad temper. Durvasa. Durvasa Muni. And like he had such a bad temper that when Maharaj Ambarish took some water before his guest, he tried to kill Maharaj Ambarish. That's pretty bad temper. Because he is Ashutosh. He's actually an expansion of Lord Shiva. So anyways, Durvasa comes. He says, I want to see Ram right now. And Lakshman says, wait a few minutes. He's in conference. A Zoom conference. Anyway, he's in conference. And Durvasa says, if I don't see him right now, I'm going to destroy all of you and your kingdom of Ayodhya that you're so attached to. And Lakshman was thinking, oh my God, what a dilemma. It means damned if you do, damned if you don't. Many of us have been in dilemmas like this before. Not quite so heavy. And Lakshman thought, well, the kingdom's more important than me. As a servant of Ram, what? I should sacrifice myself. So he intruded, and Kala went away after he gave Ram the message, and Ram said to Lakshman, get out of here. Heavy. Lakshman left, of course, and we know he left, and he went back to the spiritual world by manifesting himself as Sheshanag and ascended to the spiritual world. And so, but in the meantime, while Lakshman was still able to talk to Ram, he asked Ram for a benediction. He said to Lord Ram, I never want to be your younger brother anymore. Please give me this blessing. And, of course, Lord Ram said, okay, you can have the blessing. So next incarnation, or next appearance, actually I don't even like the word incarnation because it means to take a body. Krishna doesn't take bodies. Ajopi sanavyatman, abhutanam ishwaropi swam, pratim swamadishtaya sambhavami atmamaya. He appears in this same form, which is non-different from him. So there's no question of taking a body or giving up a body or anything like that. So anyway, so next appearance was as Krishna. So Krishna, that was Ram's next appearance. And Lakshman's next appearance was Balaram. And he's the elder brother. But Krishna doesn't always follow the rules. In this case, he's following the rules. Because so many people are observing. But Krishna, the interesting thing of all the incarnations of the Lord, Krishna is the only one who breaks rules. Ram did not dance with other ladies. In fact, even when other ladies, like that beautiful girl Surpanaka, proposed to him, he didn't accept her because Eka Patni Prata. He had a vow of what? One wife. One word, one arrow. That was Ram. You know, perfectly moral, perfectly ethical by every standard under the sun. So we come to Krishna, and Krishna really disobeyed Balaram many times. let's take one example. Balaram had a whole marriage arranged for his dear sister, Subhadra, right? With his dearmost friend, Duryodhana. Bad marriage. I couldn't think of a worse marriage. And Krishna understood it. And Krishna said, you know, he may be my elder brother, but I got a better plan than him. Krishna said, okay, Arjuna, you take my chariot. Okay, so Arjuna, actually it's interesting. Arjuna had to go into exile for some time because he intruded upon Yudhisthira and Draupadi, and that was the deal. And so when he was in exile, he had a whole bunch of other wives too, even though he was supposed to be a brahmachari. It didn't work out too well. Like Kshatriyas are not supposed to be brahmacharis. That's why grandfather Bhishma, as I mentioned yesterday, was a unique case. So anyway, so Krishna said to Arjuna, when you finish your exile, you know, the final term of your exile, you come to Dwarka. All right? You come to Dwarka, and I will be your host. So Arjuna is dressed in either saffron or sannyasi, something like that. So he comes to Dwarka, and not only is he the host of Krishna, I mean, not the host, the guest of Krishna, he is also the guest of Lord Balaram, Krishna's elder brother. And it's described in the Krishna book, it's really interesting, that Arjuna, dressed as a sannyasi, is sitting at the dinner table in Balaram's house, and Subhadra's there also. And Jai, Shishi Panchatatva ki Jai. And so what's happening is that Arjuna is making eyes at Subhadra. Imagine you invite a sannyasi to your house, and your sister, your beautiful sister's there, and the sannyasi's going. By Yogamaya, Balaram didn't notice it. I mean, I would have noticed it right away, but it was just like, oh my God, what kind of sannyasi is this? Like we mentioned yesterday, this king, Mahabhish, got cursed for looking the wrong way at Ganga Devi. Remember yesterday I told the story like that? So anyway, and Krishna was there too. And then Krishna eventually, he says to Arjuna, you can borrow my chariot. And Krishna was planning the whole thing in disobedience of his brother. Really rascal, isn't it? Disobedience of his brother. And he not only tells Arjuna he can use the chariot, he says, look, let Subhadra drive. In those days, the ladies also had driver's licenses. It's not like in Iran or other countries like that. So she was expert. Actually, the Kshatriya ladies, they were very, very expert in horsewomanship. Horsemanship. They were very expert in all sorts of martial arts. They could fight also. Did you know that? Wow. Like Dasarath's wife, Kaikeyi, getting back to Lord Ram, she actually drove the chariot to take Dasarath away from the battlefield when he was injured. And that's why she got those benedictions to be able to later on banish Ram from the kingdom. So getting back to Krishna, Krishna said, you know, let Subhadra drive, kidnap, and of course, that's what happened. Arjuna kidnapped Subhadra, or basically Subhadra kidnapped Arjuna. Depends on your angle of vision. And then what happened is that Balaram calls all the leaders of the Yadu dynasty, and he is really upset because his order has been violated. by that Arjuna. So he calls all the soldiers, let's go and attack him and teach him a lesson. And Krishna's just sitting there and says, Krishna, what do you have to say about the whole thing? And Krishna says, basically, it's a good arrangement. So cool down, Balaram. And Balaram says, that Krishna, he does things without my permission. And other times, too. I mean, the final battle between Duryodhana and Bhimsen, that Duryodhana had become invulnerable over the vast majority of his body, except for the midriff section. And they were fighting with clubs. And Krishna knew, Krishna was the one who made the arrangement that Duryodhana had some vulnerability in the midsection because, as you know in that story, when Gandhari was going to look at her son, take off her blindfold for the first time since she'd been married, she was going to make his body as strong as steel, that is, the parts of his body that she was able to see. But Krishna said to Duryodhana, you should not go in front of your mother naked. Not proper. You did it when you were a kid, but it's not proper now. So he put some leaves or something in his midriff, and he was vulnerable. So Krishna took part in that against his brother's wish. And then later on, when there was the fight going on, Krishna encouraged Bhimsen to strike him in the midriff by slapping his own thigh like that. And that's what Bhimsen did. He broke the thighs of Duryodhana. And Balaram was so angry at that point that he took his club out and he said, all right, Bhimsen, you want to fight? You're going to fight me. And nobody could fight Balaram and win. And so basically, Krishna interceded and said, leave him alone. Duryodhana did all these nasty things. He deserved it. And Balaram goes away, really upset with his brother. So it's actually quite interesting how Krishna sometimes, even though he says in the Bhagavad Gita, what? Yad yada charati shreshtas tatat eveta rojanaha. That is, great men act, all the world follows. And he says, if I didn't act properly, the world would be destroyed, isn't it? Krishna says that. But then still he doesn't follow that injunction. What a rascal. I won't say that about Ram. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. But Krishna, he acts as God, which means he gets away with anything, dancing with the girls in the middle of the night. And because he's God, it's all good. Stealing butter. I mean, I can go through Krishna's whole life, how he's doing things that are just like completely improper. Stealing butter. Pinching babies. Call the Child Protection Organization. Killing his cousin. Right? Just because of some insults. So Krishna doesn't have to follow these things because he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead and he's acting. His example, from a different perspective, is perfect. Because his example is what it means to be God. To be Swarat, to be independent. To write the rules for himself. So Krishna can say, don't do as I do. Do as I say. And if you try to imitate Krishna, you will be doing something like drinking poison, like Lord Shiva drank poison, but you were not going to be capable of digesting it. That's the example Prabhupada gave. So we don't imitate Krishna. We appreciate Krishna. We don't follow Krishna's example. We follow Ram's example. Ram is what? Maryada Purushottam. For those of you who don't know what that means. He's the topmost person, Purushottama. You know, you have this word Purushottama. Topmost person of Maryada. Rules. Does that make sense? And so we should be like Lord Ram. One wife or no wife. You get a choice. No wife or one wife. That's it. There's no third choice. I know, sometimes we have to be merciful and say, okay. Just look the other way, just out of compassion, okay. Oh. But, one wife or no wife. And also we should keep our word. Except in the case, as we described yesterday, when it's going to have adverse effects, when someone's going to be hurt by it. Certain cases, special cases. So we should actually study Ram's pastimes in that regard to understand how to act properly. So here, Krishna is acting out of his, apart from his God character. He's showing a good example. And we should inculcate that particular quality in our own lives too. Respect for superiors. And Prabhupada actually asked his disciples sometimes to offer obeisances to their mother. Like that happened in the case of Brahmananda and Gargamuni. Their mother came, and the mother was talking to Prabhupada. Prabhupada was actually quite humorous. He could do things. Prabhupada also said, I can speak like this because I'm older. Actually, I'm enjoying being older from that perspective. Because I can say certain things that if I said when I was a brahmachari, they'd kick me out of the Hare Krišna movement. Now they says, okay, we have to be respectful. So, but Prabhupada, he told the mother of Gargamuni and Brahmananda, or asked the mother, he said, I'm taking care of your sons. Would you be willing to give a donation for their upkeep? Can you imagine that? You join the Hare Krishna movement, your mother's very upset, and your Guru Maharaj says to your mother, can you pay their tuition too? Prabhupada was really bold. And of course, she replied, I've given you my sons already. What else do you want? And then Prabhupada said, or at different times, Prabhupada had them offer obeisances to their mother and touch their mother's feet. That's quite shocking for someone from the Western world. But you actually see in the Vedic culture how it's a very sweet thing how people deal with each other. Their nomenclature for dealing with each other. Like Mata Shri, my dear worshipable mother. Pita Shri, you've heard these expressions before? Pita Shri, Mata Shri, Brata Shri. Wow. I mean, it's actually quite sweet. And like the husband even would call a wife Priya, which is translated in English as dear. And of course, I won't tell you what the wife called it. I guess I should. It's not politically correct. Pati Dev. Anyway, which is, I won't translate it. So, but you may think all these little formalities are really, we've outgrown them. But really, that's what makes the society structured and sweet. The relationships are sweet in that way. Isn't it? They're loving relationships. It's not that, you're just attached to some hierarchy. But still, there are differences. And those differences, if they're recognized through language, through actions, they actually help a society become well structured, sweet, relationships become more defined, which is actually a good idea. And people are more faithful to those relationships, more faithful to the marriage relationships, more faithful to the parental relationships. I mean, that's a really big thing in India. I mean, that's one thing I really appreciate about Indian culture is that, you know, people have this faithfulness to their relationships. In the Western world, it's just like, you know, you're not faithful to your guru, you're not faithful to your parents. I mean, obviously, one should join the Hare Krishna movement, even if their parents object. I mean, it can be too extreme. Too extreme. Like in certain states in India, in Gujarat, for example, we don't make any brahmacharis. Because the parents, they have so much guilt trips to the kids that the brahmacharis are not there. So all of our brahmacharis in Gujarat are actually from, probably most of them from Bengal. Like that, where they also respect the parents. So you don't want to be too extreme like that. I mean, there's higher priorities and lower priorities. Like my mother said, if you want to serve me, you'll leave the Hare Krishna movement. And also, even more interesting, she said, I'm dying. And the reason I'm dying is you join the Hare Krishna movement. Because I was a little too cold-hearted. I just thought, well, if she dies thinking of me, you know, that's back to home, back to God. Anyway, that's not the proper attitude. But at the same time, you know, you have to understand there's certain higher priorities, like Prahlad Maharaj, right? But he was very respectful to his father, wasn't he? He didn't say, shut up, Dad. Never said. He addressed him very respectfully. Dear father, you know, better you go to the forest. Father still got upset with him and still tried to kill him. But the point is that he was very respectful. And so, yeah, so that's what I appreciate in the Indian culture quite a bit of these, not only the family relationships, but the guru relationships. You know, people are very faithful. And they will stick, my experience is they stick much more to Krishna consciousness than Western people. Much more. Much, much more. I mean, it's practically, can't compare like that. So we have to develop this sense of loyalty, especially in relationship to Krishna, especially in relationship to Srila Prabhupada and our Guru, of course. Not blind following again, really important. To Prabhupada's movement, to the society of devotees, to the elder devotees, you know, serving, like we mentioned yesterday, one has to serve or protect elderly people, cows, culture. In other words, we need culture. And that's one thing Krishna is teaching here. Culture. Culture doesn't mean, you know, the way you shake hands or go like this when you greet people. That's not culture. These are just like details. Culture means to be cultured. And Krishna wants that for his devotees. To be cultured persons, loyal persons, truthful persons, moral persons, and ethical persons. Okay. Actually, I wanted to go to the next verse, but there's no time. The next verse, actually, there's things on this verse too. Let's see. Oh, yeah, just another. Yeah, that's. Whoops. Anyway, tomorrow, I mean, there's a long purport in the next verse, which is about all these rishis and demigods and everything like that. So there's no time. So any questions or comments about the point I made in class? Yeah. Whoops, you're pointing. Oh, I'm not AI. So I don't function by remote control. So anyway, no, it's a joke. Yes?
Thank you. So thank you. It's really amazing so many points that you stressed out, and especially this that Krishna will want us to be cultured.
Yeah.
Such a powerful statement. Thank you so much, Maharaj. I'm just noticing, like in my own practice and some devotees around, that sometimes we are practicing without proper consciousness.
Right.
And that's the most of the time problem. This very interesting scientific research came out when one psychologist who do this cognitive psychology, cognitive anthropologist, he researched about the people who claim for themselves to be believers. So he asked them, if you believe in God, can you then explain how he behaves, how he looks like, what he's doing? So they gather them from different confession.
Right.
So most of them, they explained, described God as the omnipotence, ever present with everybody and like that. And then he switched this set of the questions, but the same examiner. So and they described God as an ordinary person, like he is first in one place, then another, and like that. And then he came to the conclusion that people actually, they don't believe, but they think that they believe. So, and this is also most of the time like obstacles, that we can think something that we know, and all this system of beliefs is to be questioned all the time, and not just like take it for granted and think that we actually believe that, but what's actually happening there. So in Krishna consciousness, so it's kind of this vijnana knowledge that what we can cognize in our Krishna consciousness practice. It's something that's questioning, it needs to be questioned all the time in order to not just assume that we actually believe and develop this culture of belief in our process, but actually not in reality.
Yeah. As you're aware, the word for faith doesn't mean belief. No, Shraddha is actually interesting. It's composed of two Sanskrit words, which means giving your heart, Shakta. And it's not just believing in the existence of God, but actually having full faith in God. And in order to have full faith in God, you have to, first of all, know God, like you pointed out, and know what you're doing. And the problem is most people in religion are subject to this point of what's called niyamagraha. Niyamagraha is defined by Rupa Goswami as doing the activities of devotional service, but not really thinking of why you're doing what you're doing. So it's a really interesting point, that because the why factor is the motivational factor, the what and the how and the where are actually secondary. And so generally, because religion tends to entail, or the practice of religion tends to entail, repetitive activities, like we have in Krishna consciousness, every morning we chant Guru Vashtaka, all these other things, and we chant. It's very repetitive. Externally, what we're doing is extremely repetitive, probably more than most other religions. 16 rounds, at least 2 hours of just repeating the same thing. Every day, the same Mangal Arti. Every day, the same old. So unless one is connected, and that requires, the Shraddha, the faith, understanding why they're doing what they're doing and who they're doing it for, then they become distant from spirituality. I'm not even using the word religion, because religion means so many different things, you know. Religious. People say nowadays, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. So anyway, so it means being connected, or as they say, be here now, or mindfulness. That's interesting. Mindfulness and Krishna consciousness. Just always being aware of one's motivation, or the why factor. And that requires some drilling down. Like we were talking about. Why do you believe in God? Who is God? Well, I believe in God because He's all good, He's all knowing, He's all powerful. All this omni stuff. Omniscient, omnipotent. But why? Why? What is it to you from your heart? Good point. So, who else has a question? We had other questions here from a variety of Prabhus and Pravis. Yes, sir.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Krishna was saying to Arjuna to contradict all moral codes of fighting while in Kurukshetra war, like killing Karna without weapons.
Yes.
How to follow extreme instructions of a guru without following blindly?
One has to have an ethical, moral compass. And one should not do anything. The guru, a bona fide guru, will not ask his disciple to do something immoral. And so you have to have that. Krishna is a different thing. Krishna will ask you to do all sorts of things. But you're not talking to Krishna right now. And most of us are not talking directly to Krishna. We're communicating with Krishna through Krishna's representative. So if your guru or even temple president asks you to do something that's immoral, unethical, you have a right to say no. Because the guru's position is like that of Lord Ramchandra. In one sense. Not that he's going to go out shooting everybody. Although some gurus do that. So, we should see the guru like Lord Ramchandra. Completely ethical. And if Guru Maharaj does something that's not ethical, then we have the right to ask the Guru Maharaj humbly. This should be done with etiquette, obviously. Dear Guru Maharaj, why did you do this? Why did you exceed the speed limit when you were driving your car? And then the Guru may be a little humble and say, I was just having fun. That's not unethical to go faster than the speed limit. Otherwise, I'd be guilty as charged. So, but you have a right. You have a right to question. You have a right to not obey if there's something unethical. Prabhupada did not ask us to do anything unethical. Although people interpreted his instructions later on in that particular way. Prabhupada said, he gave instructions by hook or by crook, distribute a book, right? That doesn't mean you take that literally. You have to have a little hermeneutics with the Guru's instructions. Obviously Prabhupada is saying, do whatever you have to do to distribute a book. But he's not meaning do whatever your, illicit mind tells you tells you to do, to cheat people, do a change-up or something like that. Prabhupada never approved that stuff. So they take Prabhupada's words out of context, not properly understanding what Prabhupada meant. So the bona fide guru will not ask his disciples to do something unethical. sometimes they may be things like the Guru wants you to go to a particular country where you have to hide the fact that you're a devotee or something like that. That's not unethical. But you can question at that point, Guru Maharaj, why do I have to not tell the truth to the immigration people? And he'll explain, this is, there's actually extenuating circumstances, but not with immoral things.
We have to cheat the cheaters, right?
What?
Sometimes we have to cheat the cheaters.
Yeah. Well, we don't want to cheat anybody, but we're not cheating someone by going into a country, and like I mentioned, in disguise, I went into Trinidad and told him I wasn't I didn't tell him I wasn't, I didn't lie. I just said, what is a Hare Krishna? But still, it would have been all right to say I'm not a Hare Krishna. I mean, sometimes to save your life, you got to do things. Like if a bunch of moguls come here and they want to kill all the devotees in Ljubljana, and they come up to you and say, "Are you a devotee?" I'd probably say no. You just don't be a martyr. You find in so many of these religions, isn't it, that people are martyrs. Now, I'm not criticizing martyrs, but at the same time, if you can avoid being a martyr, the body belongs to Krishna. You should, if someone's attacking you and going to kill you, put you in jail because you're a devotee, better to tell them, Allah Akbar. You got to be practical. I mean, don't be a show-off martyr. You know what a martyr is? Yeah. Okay, one more question. Otherwise, it's time for Prasadam, and I don't want to be a martyr. Question? Yeah, last question.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I was very touched when you say that in the proper times they bow obeisances to the father and mother, and sometimes we see in Krishna consciousness that when we are in this process that we don't have this respect over the parents.
Yeah.
So do you think that these relationships that we have proper respect are important for prospering Krishna consciousness?
I think so. I think we should have proper respect. I mean, if the parents raised us nicely and sacrificed for us, I mean, I learned that later on. I didn't in the beginning when I joined the Krishna conscious movement. I have to be honest about it. And I became, it took me about 20 years in the Hare Krishna movement to become a human being. I'm just being truthful. Anyway. So, but now, I really, in the last few years before my parents passed away, I exhibited a lot of respect for them. First of all, I didn't try to push Krishna consciousness on them. And I respected I didn't agree. There's a difference between agreeing and respecting. I respected, their ability to make decisions in their own life. And I appreciated everything they did for me. My mother and my father, I actually say, this is another point that I give a whole class about, that by becoming, I'm not saying I'm Krishna conscious, that would be prideful, but by becoming a little more Krishna conscious, my love for my parents increased dramatically. I would say when I first joined, parents, all right. Parents are meant to be rejected. As a hippie, But after years in the Krishna conscious movement, I could say my love for my parents became deeper and deeper and deeper. So in Krishna consciousness, we become more loving towards each other. And even husband and wife, you actually become more loving. Not in a lusty way or whatever, but in a way that's really deep. I would say that Krishna consciousness enhances our interpersonal relationships. And I found that with my own parents. Even today, they passed away, but I'm thinking of them very lovingly. What they did, I'm so appreciative. And I pray for my parents now. Before they were just karmis. I mean, you get these newbie people in Krishna, me too, and they're just like a terror on wheels. New devotees, new Christians, new whatever. It's, oh my God, talk to me after you've been 30 years in the Hare Krishna movement. Things. Anyway, ripe old age, I've become a human being. Okay, so time to end. Thank you very much. All glories to His Divine Grace. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Panchatattva ki jai.